Welcome back to The Explainer. Have you ever looked at a fictional universe and just thought to yourself, yeah, I literally wouldn't last 5 minutes in there? Well, today, we're tackling a universe where surviving for 5 minutes is actually a massive accomplishment. We're stepping right into the ruthless, high-stakes, lit RPG universe of Shadowhack. I'm so excited to guide you through this today, because what we're looking at is essentially the ultimate survival manual for the Origin world. This is a place where raw power dictates absolutely everything. Dimensional monsters are terrifyingly lethal, and your very own shadow might actually be your greatest asset. So let's not waste any time and get right into the mechanics of survival.
Okay, here's our game plan for today. We're going to systematically break this universe down. First, we'll look at the Origin world hierarchy. Second, mastering flux energy cultivation. Third, building a heavenly world. Fourth, the Shadowhack system itself. And finally, we'll wrap up with deadly artifacts and beasts.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the Origin World Hierarchy, and why you really need to know your place. Surviving here starts with one fundamental truth, guys. Understanding exactly where you stand in a society that is as rigid as it is totally brutal.
I mean, just look at the sheer socioeconomic math you have to conquer just to be considered a human being here. At the absolute bottom of the barrel, you've got the servants. These are prisoners of war or criminals, and they have literally zero rights. Right above them are the civilians, who are described in the lore as being fragile as ants. If a civilian dies, nobody even bats an eye. So the ultimate goal for everyday people is to just claw their way up to the bourgeois class, because that's where your life and your assets finally get basic legal protection. But how do you get there? Well, you either need 10,000 silver sand coins or the physical power of 9 oxen, and the gaps only get wilder from there. To reach the officials class, you need 1,000,000 coins or you have to be an authentic flux expert. And at the absolute top of the food chain, the large clans, you need a staggering 100 million coins to legally form your own armed forces. Mathematically, escaping the bottom is just incredibly punishing.
But hey, if money isn't your path up the ladder, then raw, unadulterated power has to be. Here is the exact cultivation ladder you've got to climb. You start out as a physical flux expert. That's the baseline where you hit that 9 oxen strength threshold. From there, you ascend to Flux Expert, then Great Flux Expert, Sage, Divine, and finally the absolute pinnacle of power, the Ancient God. And trust me, every single step requires astronomical resources and physical endurance that is just off the charts.
So how exactly do you climb that crazy ladder? You have to master flux energy. Let's get into Section 2, mastering flux energy cultivation and gaining true power.
Now, beyond ordinary flux energy, there is something called secondary flux energy. Basically, it's the ability to summon life forms directly from the second dimension. And according to the source material, the fluxers in the Alliance who can actually pull this off are unbelievably scarce. Actually, they're even rarer than dark fluxers. It provides a massive tactical advantage because it lets you essentially bring your own personal army to literally any fight. Now, to survive out here, a true native has to push their body way beyond normal human limits. Enter the Meridian Nurturing Flux Point technique. It's this ancient, absolutely grueling bodily transformation, and it doesn't just make you stronger, it nurtures your meridians for a thicker, more stable energy flow. Even crazier, it strengthens your flux points far beyond the universal limits of a standard Origin world native. It basically ignites a concealed flame inside your flux points that continuously purifies your stored energy. It expands your muscles, it transforms your blood, and it even substitutes your internal organs to a point of sheer perfection. It's a complete from-the-ground-up bodily rebuild that you absolutely need if you want to shatter the shackles of the deity realm.
But here is the terrifying reality. To actually become a deity, you have to face the final hurdle, opening the chest C, the abdomen C, and the navel star points. Now, these aren't just little assisting points. They are the main hubs for storing and moving energy. And the elites at the top of the pyramid intentionally restrict access to the resources needed for this. Why? Well, because the success rate is a horrifying 1%. 1 in 100. Opening these points requires a body that is practically indestructible. If your flesh isn't heavily fortified by techniques like the one we just talked about, the sheer brutal process of opening these points will literally kill you on the spot.
Now, if you do manage to survive and thrive, you don't just conquer the world, you build your own. Section 3, Building a Heavenly World, your very own private dimension.
Okay, so you create this world using an unremarkable black thumb-sized rock called an Origin Dimensional Stone. As you refine it, you give birth to a brand new energy called World Energy. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. Let's look at how this environment builds dynamically over time. As your heavenly world upgrades and congeals suns, the whole environment evolves. At one sun, you get a 1-meter fountain producing 10 tons of water a day. Not bad, right? At 2 suns, that expands into a 10-meter pond, generating hundreds of tons of water, which starts producing this odd energy that nourishes summoned beasts, like, say, an army of ape gods. By 3 suns, that pond becomes a genuine lake, and the small hills turn into real towering mountains.
So the crucial point here is growth, specifically expanding your landmass. You use black crystal dimensional stones to expand your territory, and 10,000 square meters is the exact mathematical threshold you want to hit. The literal second your heavenly world hits 10,000 square meters, a star in the starry sky suddenly congeals. It glows brighter than all the rest, completely suppressing the light of every other star out there.
But having your own private dimension comes with an absolute, undeniable, lethal flaw. See, your heavenly world is hidden away in the void, but the second you, the master, enter it, the real-world coordinates of your entry point are completely exposed to anyone outside. If you don't have guards watching your entry spot, an attacker can just easily slip right into your dimension. And here's the scariest part. If that attacker kills you while you're both inside your heavenly world, they can snatch the entire dimension for themselves before it collapses. So, until their world is vastly upgraded, the smartest Fluxers keep their heavenly world a total, absolute secret.
Now, everything we've talked about so far, that's just the baseline for the natives, but our protagonist has something else entirely. Section 4, the Shadow Hack System, the ultimate cheat code.
This system literally hacks reality itself. It allows shadows to detach, duplicate dimensional items, and actively grind for experience. But when you hit level 6, the system forces a massive strategic choice on the host. You have to choose between a non-interference system and an interference system. The non-interference choice means the system evolves completely independently, following its own established rigid path. The interference choice, though, means the system selectively evolves by directly adapting to the unique circumstances and the specific immediate dangers the host is facing. It's basically a choice between predictable steady growth or highly adaptive situational survival.
And this system yields some seriously incredible assets, like the Shadow Female Ancestor. This is an infant shadow creature that's grown rapidly using a millennium-spanning Shadow Clan god tree and virgin blood, and her capabilities are absolutely game-breaking. She possesses something called Shadow Walk, which allows her to move invisibly right between dimensional cracks. She's so stealthy that not even a high-tier battle sage can detect her. But her most terrifying hack? Replication. She can literally copy the cultivation base of anyone at the ordinary sage level or below. You essentially get a pocket-sized copycat of your enemy's hard-earned power. It's wild.
All right, moving to our final section, Section 5, Deadly Artifacts and Beasts, the Pinnacle Threats. Because to survive in the Origin world, you really need these system hacks, since the threats you're facing are literally world-ending.
10 billion. I want you to just genuinely fathom that number for a second. That is the apocalyptic scale of a swarm of parasite beetles. These things feast on flesh and blood. As long as there is a supply of flesh on the battlefield, a single, highest-quality mother beetle, especially when it's shot from a forbidden weapon called the Nine Devil Parasite Cannon, can just breed continuously. They expand so rapidly into a swarm of 10 billion, capable of causing millions of casualties on a battlefield with almost zero major energy consumption from the user. It is a straight-up biological nightmare.
To combat or even bypass that kind of madness, you need top-tier artifacts, like the Void Disk. This is one of the 3 transcending sage tools of the Tower of Glory. Normally, if you try to bring heavily powered units, like say an entire army of ape gods, through a descender channel, the laws of the Origin world just reject the energy. It collapses the channel and throws everyone into hyper-chaotic space. But the Void Disk? It manipulates spatial laws entirely. It reverses the void to enforce absolute restrictions. With this thing, a user can totally shackle the explosive energy of 350 ape gods, sneaking an entire army through those dimensional restrictions completely undetected.
And you know, sometimes the greatest artifacts look like completely simple trinkets. Take the wooden carving of Callwither's skull, the skull of a fire god's mount. This simple little carving is a tactical gold mine. First off, just showing it grants you immediate political asylum in all clans across the entire Origin world, which is an absolute lifeline if you're being hunted down. Second, it emits this residual godly presence that actively intimidates the majority of gigantic beast-grade monsters. And third, it gives you the authority to summon and command the members of 8 ancient races that were once subservient to Callwither.
It's literally diplomacy, defense, and an entire army, all carved right into a piece of wood.
So we've seen the brutal hierarchy, we've looked at the punishing path of flux energy, the lethal risks of building a heavenly world, and the totally game-breaking nature of the shadow hack system. The lore of the origin world is as vast as it is deadly, right? So I want to leave you with this thought. With countless dimensions to conquer, billion-strong swarms of beasts to evade, and ancient gods to dethrone, how far would your shadow hack take you in the origin world? Would you be stuck down in the servant class, or would you rise up to congeal your very own sons? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep exploring, keep surviving, and I will see you next time.